Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special edition of the Bill Crane Sports Report. As you can see, I'm by my lonesome here. My longtime partner, pre-pandemic, Gary Patterson, his house burned down here in Norfolk, and he has since relocated to Plymouth, Massachusetts, to a condo. So I am by my lonesome here, and the sports scene has certainly bubbled up here of late, and I really wanted to get some things off my chest, so I thought I would do this by myself, and you can listen to an hour of me ranting and raving. Suppose we start with the New England Patriots. Some history. Of course, they were born as the Boston Patriots back in 1960, but the New England Patriots have really prospered under Bill Belichick, his coaching. They floundered for 40 years, and they've been a dominant force for the last 20 years. It's almost been a dynasty. In fact, for all intents and purposes, it has. They've had a wonderful run. They are loved here in New England and hated across the rest of the country. But it kind of goes with the territory when you're successful. So there was two primary reasons for that love-hate relationship, loved here and hated there, and that was their success and their arrogance. They're mighty proud of what they do, the Patriot way and all of that, and hasn't played well around the country. But we don't care as long as they win. And their success was basically Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, and a force of many other faces, but those are the two poster boys for the success that the Patriots have known. Well, Tom Brady jumped ship to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for big money. But this is just me now, okay? I think the money was important to Tom because I think Tom used it as a measure of his greatness. He saw other quarterbacks getting a lot more money than he was getting for the Patriots. And he said, hey, wait a minute. If I'm the best quarterback in football, shouldn't I be at the top of the heap? And I think Mr. Belichick said, Tom, you're in your 40s. You're headed downhill, buddy. It's not a wise investment for us to make a big, huge, long-term contract with you. And I think that conversation is probably exactly what happened. And I think Tom wanted more of the spotlight, too. Bill Belichick and Bob Kraft, rightly, or wrongly, but I think rightly, dominated the scene. And I think Tom kind of felt maybe, I don't know, ignored a little bit or unloved a little bit or didn't get his share of the spotlight. I don't know. But I think he chafed at both being underpaid in his mind and underloved in the Patriots scheme of things. So I think with those two factors, I think Tom said to himself, you know what? I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory. Number one, I'm going to get that big contract that I want. And number two, I'm going to show Belichick that, look, it's not just you that's doing this. It can be me that's doing it. I'm going to go out, stand on my own 2 feet, and I'm going to lead a team to the playoffs and hopefully the Super Bowl. Well, guess what? He did it. And he's gotten the spotlight, the major amount of credit for everything that's happened down at Tampa Bay. And I think that he, rather than be stifled here, he center stage down there, and I think he's enjoying every second of it. Now, enjoying it so much so that one of the major TV networks supposedly has offered him a 10-year contract on TV in a role that hasn't been defined, but a 10-year contract for $375 million. So I think Tomboy is sitting in the catbird seat right now down in Tampa Bay. But what has become of the Patriots? Well, when Tommy left, there were some key components that also left shortly thereafter. Offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels left to become the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. And what really hurt is he took 3 of his key offensive assistants with him. Now, these are guys that if you think of the Patriots as a garden, these were 3 that were planted in the garden, watered, fertilized by Bill Belichick, and hopefully would grow up to be the next bunch of assistants and coordinators under his regime. Well, guess what? They didn't. They left. And they left to be with McDaniels. Well, this has caused a bit of a mess up at Gillette Stadium. And he has cobbled together, out of necessity, 2 of his friends, former defensive coordinator Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, who was a defensive coach. And I think he had another title too when he was here with the Patriots. But both of them left the Patriots and went on to head coaching positions. Patricia up at Detroit and Judge in New York. Both of them failed miserably and were given their walking papers. So they came back to Bill Belichick to regroup, as it were, and redefine their careers and perhaps be able to hone their skills and move on to bigger and better things working with Bill. Well, this ill-defined partnership, where seemingly the one doesn't know what the other is thinking or doing, is not working. So there's nothing decisive or cohesive about the shotgun marriage, as the Patriots have sputtered through their first 3 games, winning 1 and losing 2. I don't care for the way the offense has performed. I think that play calling has been slow, very conservative, and neither Patricia nor Judge, and I think it's Patricia calling the shots, has been able to tap into the flow of the game. They can't run a hurry-up offense because Patricia is just simply cannot handle the hurry-up play calling. He's never done it before, nor has Judge. And the offense has been very disappointing. Now, you got a kid, Mac Jones, entering his second year. He needs help. They're not capable of giving it to him. I think the world of him, and I think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. Now, maybe not great, but good. He's a very accurate passer, but yet some of his reads haven't been quite perfect yet. And he's not hitting on all 8 cylinders, but I don't believe he's getting a lot of help from the coaching staff either. Where McDaniel would have been with him constantly, in his ear, constantly, play calling, constantly. There was a consistency to McDaniels. He was a brilliant coordinator, and he's a tough act to follow. But wow, these two guys are just not getting it done. And Belichick has really stuck up for these two guys. And he's saying, don't blame them, blame me. I'm the one that put them there. I'm the one that's directing them what to do. So if you guys have a complaint, you guys, meaning the media, the press, all that stuff, aim it at me. I'm a big boy. I'll take it. And when they do, then he gets all thin-skinned and starts yelling at them, and it's not a real swell deal going on up at Gillette these days. In fact, Tom had a bad press conference this week when I'm getting ahead of myself here a little bit. Perhaps I need to backtrack. In last week's game, Mac Jones was hurt, and he's been diagnosed with a serious high ankle sprain. Well, at his press conference, Belichick should have expected all of this, but he acted as though, I don't know. When they said, how long is he going to be out? Don't know. What's the prognosis? Was there any ligament damage? I don't know. And then finally gets really cranked. Look, I'm not a doctor. I don't know this stuff. Ask the doctors what's going on. And, well, the press knows. See, it's a game that they play with Belichick. Try to annoy Belichick, and he, in turn, tries to annoy the press. Well, the press won this round because he started spouting off. But the long and the short of it is that Jones is probably going to be out 6 to 8 weeks with this high ankle sprain. It's such a difficult problem for an athlete. You and I can walk it off in a couple of weeks or 3 weeks. He can't. He's got to get up to playing speed. So we're looking now at Brian Hoyer. Now, well, I'm getting ahead of myself again here. I should look at my notes a little bit more. So what we have here, Coach Belichick says to Patricia and Judge, do your best, and he walks off. That doesn't really sound to me like a great plan. But now we have chaos. No offensive coordinator, no quarterback, and we have Brian Hoyer, a 36-year-old career backup and mentor for Mac Jones. Now he's front and center, backed up by a raw rookie named Bailey Zappa from a second-tier college. Folks, this is not going to be a pleasant season. In fact, it's looking like 4-17. No, 4-17, that doesn't add up. 4-13 makes 17. So it looks like a 4-13 season to me. Well, I wish Gary was here with me now. He'd be yelling at me. But so here we are. We're in the middle of chaos. Next couple, 3 weeks going to be brutal. Bill is not panicking. I believe, very honestly, he has a plan. And I'm telling you, I'm going to be the first guy that reveals the plan. Okay? Bill has a very close friend. His name is Billy O'Brien. Now, Billy O'Brien used to be the offensive coordinator here in New England. And he went to the college ranks, and he is the offensive coordinator over at Alabama back in the college ranks with Lou Saban, who's a close friend of Belichick's also. Now, during the spring training season, guess who was up with the Patriots for a lot of that time, those couple of weeks? Now, if you guess Billy O'Brien, you guessed correctly. So, let's add this up. The Patriots need an offensive coordinator. Billy O'Brien spends an inordinate amount of time with Bill Belichick during the training season. Now, we have to go behind the scenes now and assume that I'm correct, that Belichick at that point goes to Lou Saban and says, how much hell am I going to raise if I try to hire Billy away from you? And Saban says, a lot. I don't want you to do it. So they make a deal, a handshake deal, that Belichick agrees not to poach anybody off the Alabama team for this season. Next season, you can come in and try to sign my guys if you want. But this season, we think we can be number one in the country. I want to keep my groups together. And if you get eyes on Billy, then great. It'll be a promotion for him. And, we can work something out. So I think what's going to happen is come spring, at the end of the seasons, both the pros and the college, you'll see Billy O'Brien hired by Belichick as offensive coordinator and assistant head coach rolled into one, with the idea that Billy will be ordained as head coach when Belichick steps down. I really and truly think that that's a distinct possibility. And then, to mess everything up, Mac Jones goes and gets himself injured. Boy, oh boy. But I think that's how it's going to all work out. In other football news, old friend Jimmy Garoppolo landed on his feet out to San Francisco. He signed a big contract with them, not guaranteed, and they kind of fell out of love with Jimmy. and they wanted to buy him out or just drop him. Well, guess what happened? They drafted a kid number 1 by the name of Trey Lance. He was going to sit by Garoppolo last year and learn and take over this year. Well, he sat by him, and the jury's out as to whether he learned anything or not, but they did start him, and he did not impress, and then he got hurt. Well, in the meantime, Garoppolo had renegotiated the contract with San Francisco to reflect the fact that he was going to be the backup. So he signed in the roughly, with incentives, around $15 million a year. Not bad to be a backup. And guess what happens? Trey Lance gets hurt and he's out for the season. So look at Garoppolo. He lands on his feet with this roughly $15 million contract. He's the number 1 quarterback on San Francisco for the rest of the season, and he goes as a free agent after that. So, assuming he does well, he sits in the catbird seat to pick up a really good contract from a major contender football team in the NFL. He's going to be saying to himself, man, thank God for dumb luck. It all worked out. So, as long as he plays well, he's got it nailed. And then he leaves San Francisco, and they can decide what the devil to do after that. But it's great when a plan comes together like that, and he's a happy camper. So, one other football item, old friend Vince Wilfork, a great defensive lineman for the Patriots, has been honored with induction into the Patriots Hall of Fame, and spent some time up at Gillette Stadium meeting folks and the induction ceremony and all that stuff. And it's good to remember Vince. He was one heck of a football player. Any of you folks that maybe were too young for him or weren't Patriots fans or whatever, if you never saw Vince Wilfork play, he was a one-man wrecking crew, defensive nose tackle, a big, heavy guy, but he could run like a back. And he was a delight to be around. His teammates loved him, the fans loved him, and the folks locally loved him. He was very active in the community. So anyway, it's great to see a good guy get some recognition. Now, I think we can put the Patriots to bed for a while. I don't know. I'll still watch the games, but I won't blame too many of you if you decide that perhaps you'll find something else to do with your Sundays. Maybe drink more. Who knows? Well, talk about turmoil. Let's change our scope a little bit here and take a look at basketball. The Celtics improved last year to 51-31 with first-year Ime Udoka as first-year head coach. Well, somewhere around Christmas, the Celtics began to gel. They began to buy into Udoka himself and his defense. And finally, the offense, especially moving the ball. You say, well, wait a minute now, Bill. moving the ball. They pass the ball all the time. Well, Udoka wants the ball flying around the court. He's looking for mismatches. He wants that ball on the move. Well, guess what? They bought into it, finally, and turned their whole season around. There were a couple of games under 500, and he ended up 20 games over 500. Now, they have some budding superstars on the team. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Rob Williams. And their success, their maturing, also helped the process. The Defensive Player of the Year, Marcus Smart, helped matters out a lot too by buying into Udoka's concept of how he wanted the Celtics to play. And make no mistake that Marcus Smart is a team leader on this team. He's not shy about stating his positions or not shy about getting in teammates' faces on a positive basis. He's not a negative guy, but he knows how to explain to people his point of view. Also, they have an improving forward in Grant Williams, who started the year slowly and improved as the year led on. I like Grant Williams, both offensively and defensively. I think he's going to be a good basketball player. You look at him, playing defense, he stands right in there and he takes charges from guys that are running the lane, and he gets knocked flat on his back time and time again, but he picks up the fouls. He's also a good three-point shooter, especially from the corner. He had his problems there around the middle of the season, but he's shown the ability to shoot the threes in the past, and I think he's going to be a key contributor this year. So, the Celtics also went out during the offseason and they signed Malcolm Brogdon. I think he got him in a trade, and signed Danilo Gallinari to bring some genuine talent and depth to the bench. So you say to yourself, holy cow, I can't wait for the season to start. Man, I ought to start buying the beer and the popcorn and the pretzels in advance so I can just plunk in front of the TV and sit there and yell, "Go Celtics." I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Oh, gee, have I shown my hand here a little bit early? What could go wrong? Well, Danilo Gallinari, who is an excellent offensive player, a little bit long in the tooth, but an excellent basketball player, especially on offense, suffered a serious leg injury and gone for the season. Well, gee, that's great, huh? And then Rob Williams, who had knee surgery late in the season and came back for the playoffs, probably too soon, but nonetheless, has found out that the knee is acting up again. They had to go in and clean it out. They found some further damage. and he's 6 to 8 or 8 to 10 weeks on the injured list. He will be out of action. Oh, gee, that's great. So what else could possibly happen? Well, first year coach Ime Udoka kind of zigged when he should have zagged with a female employee of the Celtics. And that is verboten, which in German means prohibited. But you know, he was separated from his wife, so he said. But that kind of thing goes on all the time. And no details have come out about this whole affair. But I think there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. And someone said that the young lady was none too willing to become involved, or what became involved and then wanted out, or who knows? No one knows. But I think this is more than just married man dates single woman and is caught. I think it's a lot more than that. And I think it's possible he used his influence as the coach to pressure her into a relationship. Who knows? No one knows. Well, people know, but they're not saying. But the upshot of this is Celtics immediately suspended him for 1 year. Now, I don't think that the players on the team, some of whom are married, are in committed relationships, or have children, I don't think they stay home every night when there's no game and watch The Price is Right, or some Dancing with the Stars, if you will. I think they may go out and do a little partying. No one makes too much of that. In fact, no one makes anything at all of that. So it seems to me that there's smoke here, but I think there's fire here also. Now, what's interesting here, we're talking about this, but why are we so obsessed with what goes on with basketball players off the court? I think one of the reasons why the Celtics are up in arms is there is a high percentage of female viewership and interest in basketball than in any other sport. And if this guy is leaning on women for sex, I think it becomes very important to the Celtics to stop it from a human being point of view, but also from a viewership and team support point of view also. I don't know. But I do know this, that if Ime wanted to do some innocent fooling around with non-Celtic employees, and he ran an ad on the internet Gee, I'd like to casually date attractive young ladies. He'd probably get about 30,000 responses in the first week. So it's not as though he couldn't find a social life. I don't know how this is all going to play out, but the Celtics have appointed a fellow here to be the replacement coach. I must admit, I've got his name here someplace, but I guess what I'm concerned about is the stupidity of this on the part of Udoka. He's got a year suspension, so something serious happened. He's received draconian punishment for an incident that happens multiple times every day of the week. The stupidity is what happens to the younger members of the fan base. Economic repercussions to the team as sponsors cancel ads with the Celtics, and just one more chink in the base of the family structure when one member of the family unit says, hey, this is all about me, the hell with my wife and kids. The family unit has eroded mightily in the last 50 or 60 years. And we get people acting like this. It's just one more nail in the coffin of the family structure. That's my biggest complaint. If you want to live your life as a tomcat, why do you get married and have a family? I mean, really, why? It sends a wrong message. So, my fearless prediction is when healthy, this will be an exciting team to watch and will end up very similar to last year, 51-31. And injuries will determine how far they'll go in the playoffs. Make no mistakes, this is a very talented and deep team. And as they mature, they will continue to improve. And my prediction on Udoka, he will probably resign. I can't see him coming back after this. I really can't. But, hey, I've been wrong before, but this is a sloppy situation, and there's one person to blame, and that's Coach Udoka. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. Let's try some chatter about the Bruins. Now, I'm going to tell you right up front, folks, I've had a lifelong love affair with the Bruins. It starts back in the days of radio. Most of you don't remember that. But the Bruins were on the radio, their night games, and my brother Tommy and I would go to bed on school nights and all the nights, and we'd turn the radio on. We had a little clock radio in our room, and we would listen to the Bruins. They'd come on at 7:30. Fred Cusick was the announcer, and we would get our homework done, such as it was, and go to bed and listen to the Bruins. And we then went to our first hockey game. My dad took us. 1954, they beat the Detroit Red Wings 8-4. That was quite a night. And so, when I got my first car when I was 18 years old, I was liberated. And I started going to every home game of the Bruins. And the capacity into the Garden was 13,909. But they would draw 6,000, 6,500, 7,000 fans. See, it didn't, I'd need to worry about getting a ticket. And I'd go in most of the time by myself and buy a $2 ticket, a blue ticket, and watch the game. I did that until I went in the Army. When I got out of the Army, I went back to my ways of going to the Bruins games, but something happened. That something was a little blonde-headed fellow by the name of Bobby Orr arrived on the scene. Number 4, the greatest hockey player I've ever seen, Bobby Orr. All of a sudden, tickets became a little more difficult to get. So I went in and stood in the line when they announced the season tickets went on sale. I don't know how long I stood in line, but it seemed like forever. And I got 2 tickets. Section 105, row E, seats 11 and 12 for my brother Tommy and I. And attended the games religiously. I think I saw every home game that Bobby Orr played in his entire career except one. I had to go to a wedding, it seems to me, or something. It was something. But I can say that I think I saw every game he played on home ice. And of course, most of the games were on TV, on old Channel 38. And if you had a good outside antenna, you could get pretty good reception. I watched every game I could. So, Tommy and I were in there for the Stanley Cup on Mother's Day, 1971, when the Bruins eliminated the St. Louis Blues to win the Stanley Cup. And 2 years later, they repeated. They beat the New York Rangers. Had to be satisfied with watching that one on TV. And I kept my season tickets for many, many years until Nesson came to the fore and all the games were on TV. Well, at the same time, I was given more and more responsible jobs and ended up traveling, and then ended up traveling a lot. So I finally gave up my season tickets, but I've continued to follow the Bruins all along, and the memories I have of the Bruins back in those days, just terrific. I was dating a girl at the time, and she loved hockey. And we went to a couple of the Meet the Bruins dinners and such, and got to meet all the Bruins. Phil Esposito was one of my favorites, and of course Bobby Orr, Johnny Busick, Pie McKenzie, and some of the old-timers would come. Eddie Sanford, Eddie Johnston, of course he wasn't an old-timer then, but Eddie Johnston, Fleming McKell. And then the next generation came through. with Barry Peterson, Ricky Middleton, Cam Neely, Keith Crowder, Ray Bork, Brad Park. Great memories. Great hockey players, and just about 100% great guys, too. Phil Esposito was a terrific hockey player, and he was a terrific talker. I want to tell you something. If you asked him a question about hockey, he'd stand there for 15 minutes explaining to you his reply. He loved the game of hockey, loved talking about it. It was a fun guy, a really fun guy. Bobby Orr was the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet in your life. Another good guy, Eddie Johnston, the goalie. Eddie had a brother here in Norfolk, Norfolk prison. He was a bank robber. And when Eddie found out I was from Norfolk, he said, oh yeah, I said, I know where Norfolk is. But Ed was, and I met Ed a couple of times later on. In fact, I sat with him on a plane in first class. He was flying from Boston out to Pittsburgh, and that's where I was going. And nice chat with him. He's just a really good guy, good stories. But the Bruins to me, and Ricky Middleton was another guy. Nice guy. Barry Peterson, very, very nice guy. And I also got to know the Bruins general manager, Milt Schmidt, Hall of Fame. He was the center on the Kraut line. He sat in one particular seat back in the early days when I was going, in the back row of the lower grandstands at one end. And he sat by himself all the time, watching the game. So I said to myself one night, I'm going to take a walk down and say hi to Milt. He was the nicest guy in the world. I said, they're not playing well tonight, Milt. He said, no, they're not. He says, and some of them are going to hear about it tomorrow, too. But he was a great guy. Harry Sinden, I used to meet him all the time. Harry used to get thirsty in between periods and would walk by the back of my section going down one level to the lounge where he'd get some gargle water. And I'd meet him on the stairs. He was a hot ticket. But those are wonderful memories. But now we have to fast forward to today. The Bruins are at a critical juncture. Ownership has been constant. I mean, Jeremy Jacobs has owned the club for a long time. And he pretty much is a hands-off owner. He looks at the bottom line and lets the hockey guys run the hockey show. He does not interfere. But last year, the Bruins decided they had had enough of Bruce Cassidy as a head coach. Very successful, he had a good one-loss record. Very involved with the team, a hard worker, but some of the players objected to the fact that when Cassidy admonished them for lack of spirited play, he wasn't discreet about it, wasn't one-on-one about it, didn't really care who was around, he'd blast them. So some of the players were intimidated by this. Some of them were just very angry. And I suspect a couple of players might have gone to management and said, you know, this guy is counterproductive. And Don Sweeney, the general manager, used to be a defenseman for the Bruins. Finally decided that he better do something. And he fired Cassidy and hired Jim Montgomery as the new head coach. Jim comes in with the reputation of being Mr. Nice Guy. So we'll see what that change produces. I think Montgomery has got a team that is aging and not aging terribly gracefully, I should say. David Krachi took the year off last year to play in Czechoslovakia in front of his family. It's something that he wanted to do. He flirted with the idea of retiring. He went over, played a season, enjoyed it, but he missed the competition, and he said to the Bruins, I'm willing to come back if you'll have me. And they signed him to a contract, and he's back. We lost a couple of other players, key players, to injuries last year. Patrice Bergeron lost quite a bit of time. He's getting 35 or so, I think, now. 37, take it back. He's 37 years old. Still performing at a good level. He had 25 goals and 40 assists last year. Wonderful defensive player and a great team captain. Very decent guy. But Brad Marchand, who is arguably their best player, he's 34 years old. Wow. Taylor Hall is 30. David Krachi, we talked about, he's 36. So there are a couple of young players that are going to continue to get better. Charlie McAvoy is only 24. He's going to be an all-star defenseman for years to come. And we got Jake Dubrusk, had some rugged years. He did not take well to Bruce Cassidy. He very sensitive. He took everything to heart and got in Cassidy's doghouse for not performing. And, well, he didn't work very hard to get out of the doghouse. He just complained, asked for a trade. And they said, no, we're not going to trade you. Get back in the lineup and play hockey. And he bounced back. Got 25 goals last year. So maybe, just maybe, he's turned his career around. We'll see. But that would be a key thing. Because, as I say, he's only 25 years old. David Pastrnak, wonderful hockey player. He's 26 years old. So we got some guys coming, or here already, that have got some good years ahead of them. Brendan Carlo on defense is on 25. But I think that the real young star on this team is the goalie, Jeremy Swayman. He's 23. He took the #1 job last year, away from Linus Ullmark, who they signed as a free agent. I don't know why they signed him. He's not that great a goaltender, but they did. But Swayman is definitely a real key to this team. One of the things that's held the Bruins back has been the lack of draft choices producing. I mean, just listen to this list. Jack Studnicka, John Beecher, Zaboro, Dubrusk. Senyshyn, Malcolm Subban, Jonathan Aitken, Shane Stevenson, Jonathan Caron. Now, you say to me, Bill, I never heard of those clowns. Yeah, they were high draft choices that never were able to play for the Bruins. They were not good enough. The Bruins cheap out. They don't have enough scouts out there doing a good job. They had Wayne Gretzky's brother that headed up scouting, and they chose some good hockey players. He wanted a raise, he wanted to hire more people, and they said no, so he walked. He's now the head guy up at the Edmonton Oilers as far as managing the drafts and coordinating young players and scouts. But the Bruins also, living in the past just a little bit longer, lost some key guys, but they had some bad luck with injuries. Bobby Orr ended his career early with a series of knee problems. Gordy Kluzak came with a bad knee, and he never had a career at all. Barry Peterson contracted a growth in one of his muscles in his arm. They had to remove part of the muscle. He never could shoot again the way he used to. Cam Neely had knee troubles. Michael Telvin, I don't think too many of you will remember him. He came over from Sweden. Wonderful defenseman on the small side, and he had chronic shoulder problems and was told he couldn't play hockey again. And of course, Norman Levier, #1 draft choice, great little hockey player, strong, tough kid, had a stroke at the age of 19. A stroke. Couldn't speak. They went through rehabilitation, walks awkwardly and speaks awkwardly to this day. Terrible, terrible. So if you'd like one indicator of the strength on this Bruins team for this year, is this little tidbit. The Bruins have 36-year-old Anton Stralman in camp on a tryout contract. He's well-traveled with stops in Toronto, Columbus, the New York Rangers, Tampa Bay, Florida, and Arizona. Can you girls and boys spell desperate? This, boys and girls, is a bad sign. An even worse sign would be if they signed him to a real contract. So that's it, kids. Summing up, I think the Bruins are getting old. The minor league system is rated as among the worst in hockey. A new coach. I don't think things look very good. 500 season, maybe. That's the best we can hope for. The playoffs, I don't think so. Hope I'm wrong, but we'll watch this as we go along. Well, listen, folks, thank you for inviting me into your homes, and I promise to do another show on the Red Sox, and we'll check up on the Bruins and the Patriots and the Celtics as we go along. But the next show will be primarily the Red Sox, and I'd advise you to have a couple of cans of beer and a crying towel handy, because this is not going to be a pleasant show. On that cheerful note, I wish you all the best. Good night.